Welcome in to another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube. Today I'm looking at more Dynasty rookie buy and sell, focusing on four bigger name players who surprisingly fell to day three. Make sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe if you haven't. Let's go. Player number one, Troy Franklin. So a lot of people thought that Troy Franklin early in the process was going to be a late first round pick, then a second round pick. I don't think anyone expected him to fall to the fourth round where he was picked by the Denver Broncos. So where does that leave Troy Franklin? His fantasy fit here. So he's reunited with his college quarterback in Bo Nix. I like that. And he will compete with Josh Reynolds and Marvin Mims for playing time behind Cortland Sutton. But, is it the best offense? No. Is he going to get on the field right away? I mean, I hope so. I hope he's better than Josh Reynolds, but it's not a guarantee. But I do like the quarterback fit. So for those reasons, I have him at 304 in my Superflex rookie rankings. I'd still take third-round receivers like Jermaine Burton and Malachi Corley ahead of him, which I don't think is consensus. And I have him in overall ranks at wide receiver 66, which is just hard. I mean, the day three wide receivers, there's a hit here and there, but the majority of them are failures. They very rarely actually hit. So for all of those reasons, I have Franklin. My verdict is a slight sell. He usually goes slightly too early for me. I'm concerned that if a Cortland Sutton trade doesn't happen, that he just won't have any production year one. Is he better than Marvin Mims? I mean, Marvin Mims was also picked by this regime and was picked earlier. So is he better? I don't know. Do the Broncos think he's better? I'm not sure. I just, like I said, would rather have Jermaine Burton, Malachi Corley, and also Roman Wilson, especially, who all I've seen go later than Franklin. So my verdict is just a small sell on Franklin. Next up, Jaylen Wright. So again, I thought Jaylen Wright would go on day two. I thought he'd be a round 3 pick, but he wasn't. He fell all the way to 120th overall, the middle of the 4th round, to the Miami Dolphins. Now, mixed bag here. So we all know that the Dolphins' run scheme is like fantasy gold, right? But he's stuck behind Devon Achane, who's not going anywhere. This is his second year. He has 3 years left on his rookie deal. And the recently extended Raheem Mostert. So is Jaylen Wright going to have any role in week one? I don't see that. I think that he's not going to pass Achane or Mostert by week one. So where does that leave him? In Superflex rookie drafts, I have him, between the 212 and 301, depending on if it's tight end premium. Where I rank Ben Sinnott is the reason for that. But it's just hard. It's hard. The track record of these later running backs is better than the track record of the later wide receivers, but it's tough. They really don't hit. And if they do, they don't hold their value because you're always looking over their shoulder to see if they can be replaced. But because of the upside and because of the weakness of the running back position in general, I still have Wright at running back 35 in my dynasty rankings. Again, I think that says more about how I feel like the running back position in the NFL is kind of at a turning point. It's very weak. I feel like it's weak. And I think the 2025 running back class is going to be like 2017 was. It's going to clear out a lot of the middling to meh running backs in the NFL. So what's my verdict here? I'm more okay with this price. I think there's more upside with Wright than there was with Franklin. He sometimes goes in this range, and I'd rather take him over some lower upside wide receivers. Like I said, immense upside, but it's scary. A lot of day 3 running backs literally do absolutely nothing, and you're just lighting a pick on fire. So it's tough. The risk reward, though, he's not as much of a sell for me as Franklin. It's more of a I'm okay with the price. Next up, Ja'Tavion Sanders. So now I've been out on Ja'Tavion Sanders the entire process. I said, don't draft him. Then he was going to be an early second-round pick, then a mid-second-round pick. Then he was going to fall to the 3rd. Then in the real draft, he went in the 4th to the Carolina Panthers, 101st overall. Now, what's our fantasy fit here? In theory, he has an easy path to the starting job. Just Tommy Tremble ahead of him. New coaching staff who obviously didn't pick Tremble. I think Tremble might have been 2 regimes ago. A relatively weak wide receiver weapons. Yes, they have Deontay Johnson. They did pick Xavier Legette, but Jonathan Mingo and Adam Thielen are from a previous regime. So, it's not the best set of wide receivers. And a questionable quarterback in Bryce Young. Is Bryce Young going to support anyone other than Deontay Johnson in the passing game? I don't think that that's a guarantee. And I don't think there's any way that Sanders is ahead of even Adam Thielen or Xavier Legette on the target pecking order year one. What's his Superflex rookie value? 401, even in tight end premium. And honestly, I don't think he's really worth taking otherwise. He's 5 to 6 spot. I mean, you could take him, but he's 5 to 6 spots lower without a premium. I've never seen him at a price that I want. In Dynasty, I have him tight end 22. I guess that sounds okay, but if you actually listen to where he is, he's below Isaiah Likely, who is a backup, and ahead of Cade Otton, who they added another wide receiver and really doesn't do much. So, yeah, he's basically in that has almost no value range. And what's the verdict on Sanders to me? Strong sell off board. I mean, I have never seen a draft where I've been interested in the price of Jatavion Sanders. I've never even seen a draft where I've been 5 picks away from wanting to take Jatavion Sanders. He is the rookie that I have zero, and I mean zero, interest in having this year at all. I will have none of him. None at all. When we get to week 1 and Tommy Tremble is potentially splitting time or the starter, people will already panic, even though day 3 tight ends never hit. George Kittle's the only one in the Dynasty era since we've, the last 10 years. George Kittle's the only one to really make a difference other than converted wide receivers like Darren Waller. That's not the same thing. But a true tight end, it's really only George Kittle from day 3 to be a high-end producer. And Sanders has no athleticism. Tight ends with his athletic profile never hit. Never. So totally off my board. I'll have him 0. Jatavion Sanders. Last up, Braelon Allen. And Allen, oh man, fell to day 3, which I didn't like. And then he went to the Jets, which I also didn't like because they have Breece Hall, who's not going to be displaced as a starter. And even worse, they picked another running back in the 5th round, Isaiah Davis. And they still have Israel Abanikanda from last year in the 5th round, who actually looked decent in limited work. So while I think Allen is probably going to be the RB2, it's still the RB2 behind a workhorse, and it's still a maybe. So this is the worst landing spot he could have possibly fallen in, and it sucks. I have him at 310, I guess, in Superflex rookie drafts. I mean, I've honestly seen him go even lower than that, but it's just so hard to rank him highly, even though I did like the prospect. He's a good rushing prospect. I have him at RB50 in Dynasty. And what's my verdict? Actually, it was a slight buy. I don't hate his price. In rookie drafts, it kind of depends. Sometimes I see him go really early. Sometimes he's totally forgotten about. I feel like his talent is going to show up at some point, but the situation is so bad. In startups, though, I see a lot of people might take like crusty veterans, really boring veterans over him. And we have to remember that like Braelon Allen is like 4 years younger than some of these other running back prospects. He's not even 21. He turns 21 in January of 2025. So he does have time to develop. In 3 years, actually in 4 years, he will be younger than Ray Davis is now. So if that gives you something to consider, but I just don't see how he's ever going to get playing time anytime soon. Now, I have some free agency news, 2 pieces of free agency news that we're going to get into right now. First up, Rashaad Penny signed with the Panthers. This one is not so relevant. 1-year deal. He joins the depth chart with Jonathan Brooks, Chuba Hubbard, and Miles Sanders. They're not going to have all 4 of those players in September. I think that Miles Sanders could be traded. Penny was great in limited work in 2021 and 2022 before his injury. 6.3 yards a carry on 119 carries, 749 yards, and 6 touchdowns in 2021. And 57 carries, 346 yards, and 2 touchdowns, 6.1 yards a carry as the starter before he went down in 2022. And then, of course, Kenneth Walker took over. But he did nothing for the Eagles in 2023. He's still just 28 years old. I don't really have any interest in adding him, though. I think Chuba Hubbard is the clear backup to Jonathan Brooks. I'm more interested, though, to see if Sanders, or maybe Hubbard, I think it would be Sanders, is traded because there are teams where Sanders would be the RB2, at least. On the Cowboys, he might be the RB1. So maybe there's some hope for Sanders. I'm more interested in that piece of it than I am in anything with Rashaad Penny. Next up, I think this is more relevant. Tyler Boyd signed with the Titans. 1-year deal up to $4.5 million. I did talk about Boyd on a recent stash video, and I do think he'll be the clear slot receiver alongside outside wide receivers DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley, both of whom went into the slot less than 20%. So Boyd is going to be their slot receiver. It means that Treylon Burks is now the wide receiver 4 and has no role, and that Chig Okonkwo also has no real value because now Boyd will take those over the middle targets. And Boyd, while he's nothing special, did a lot more than Okonkwo ever did. Just last year, 67 catches, 667 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So for me, Boyd, I have at wide receiver 9. He just feels like a roster clogger. Needs an injury to have relevance. But I did move Treylon Burks down 1 wide receiver spot and 10 overall spots. Likely to be traded, but this just smells like a total disaster, total bust. And Okonkwo stayed the same in the tight end rankings, but also down 10 overall spots. I just don't see the value of Okonkwo. And it does seem like the Titans' new coaching staff does not like the players they inherited from the previous regime. So I don't know if that says that they don't like Tajay Spears either. But, they don't like Treylon Burks, and I don't think they like Chig Okonkwo. So we're going to see what happens after that. Now, if you like the video so far, make sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. If you want to support me and my content, the best way to do that is to go up there and click on the link to sign up for the Patreon at patreon.com/fantasyadvice. You can get my full Dynasty ranks, rookie rankings. You can ask questions in the Patreon Discord, which includes the ability to ask advanced questions for my YouTube videos. I have 2 of those questions here today. So let's get into the first one. Top 3 running backs you're buying as we approach September if you're in need of running back depth. Now, in general, I hate buying running backs. But if we're going to leave rookies out of it, as there are some rookies I like at their cost, I have 3 running backs to discuss. One is actually Tajay Spears. And I do think that there is some concern about him and the Titans, but I think people are too concerned. They've dropped his value too much. People are too afraid of Pollard, who really didn't look good in 2023. I think Spears could be the starter, and I would take advantage of his depressed price to take a risk on him. But you got to understand, it's a risk. I mean, we could come out and Tony Pollard gets 80% of the work week 1. That's absolutely a possibility. So he's got to come cheap. Next up, Kendre Miller. Didn't get a chance to show what he can do in 2023. He will be younger than a lot of the running backs in this class, and Alvin Kamara and Jamal Williams are both 29 and both in decline. So I think he has a good chance to have a real role as soon as a few weeks into the season. And then lastly, Zach Charbonnet. Kenneth Walker is clearly ahead of him, but I had Charbonnet as my RB3 in last year's class, and 1 injury to Walker, and Charbonnet could have a 3-down role, and the new coaching staff has no loyalty to Walker. It's possible they'll use the same split as last year. It's possible they won't. So that's something to consider. Last one. What are your thoughts on Puka Nacua? See a buy, sell, or hold? Did anything change about the Rams situation that should have us more excited or maybe concerned about Puka's outlook for 2024? Nothing really changed, right? I mean, the same quarterback, no wide receivers were added. They re-signed Demarcus Robinson as the wide receiver 3, added nobody. I do think Puka's a little bit of a buy because people don't quite trust him because of his draft capital. But he had the best rookie wide receiver season ever, so there's really nothing not to trust. Now, once again, if you liked the video, make sure to drop a like and leave a comment with your thoughts on this video. As always, the best way to support the YouTube is to subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notifications bell so you can be notified about all my exciting content as it drops. Of course, if you want my full Dynasty Fantasy Football advice, it's available on the Patreon. Every sign up helps support my independent content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.